because when they would get burnt out was when they would realize they'd wake up one day that they were doing a lot and everybody else wasn't doing as much. And they would feel like there would be a connection to burnt out and value.
Yeah.
Right. They would feel like what they're doing, what either by themselves or by others, was not being valued. And that lack of value was going to directly correlate to feeling burnt out and feeling like they're frustrated.
That was a powerful point. It's funny. You could work the same amount of pace, and if you've got somebody encouraging you or giving you an attaboy or patting you on the back, you could do it for so much longer. And if you're being ignored, all of a sudden you start feeling the pain. And sometimes just being recognized for the effort from as a leader to a subordinate is all it takes sometimes, just to keep them going.
Super clutch, right? And I would tell people, like, they would get mad at me when I wouldn't give them opportunities. I'd say, look, you're doing so great. I do not want you to burn yourself out because, and here's what I tell them: trust me, trust the team. You're not losing your position because, we're always worried about the hierarchy and where am I going to fall out in the overall evaluations or the rankings or your perception of me. But you need to trust. And then what this shows is you trust the organization more because you're letting some of it go, because some of us want to have it all on our back, right? We just can't help it. We just feel like we have to be the one. And as you get older and as you get a little more maturity, you're going to learn to distribute that load so that way you can just help other people by you're always the one carrying that weight. The other thing I will tell you is I'm very open with my people when it comes to having good days and bad days. And I started that by my last few years in the Navy. I really was a lot more open with people. I didn't really recognize it was mental health, but I was thinking like I'm tired or whatnot. But what I learned is if it's not complaining per se, but when it's legitimate, like a concern, the more that I'm willing to share about my challenges, the more they're willing to share with me about their challenges.
True.
So if they're struggling or going through it, they'll let me know. And for the kids in my school, they'll just walk in and just start bawling, right? They'll just tell me like bad day, bad ride-in with a parent, whatever it is. And I recognize immediately, like, okay, like you said earlier, what really matters and what's really important. And I will help them to get rid of all the things that are not really required for clarity, so that we could focus on the real problems, right? Because, it's just, we get so worried about all the extra things in life that we forget that, our life is to be here to hopefully serve people, to have a good relationship with God, to have a great experience. And what it's not supposed to be is about obsessing about trying to equal or add up to what society tells us we're supposed to be, or like have the best looking uniform or have the best haircut or have the best date to the prom or whatever it is, right? And I guess for me, I'm really sensitive to the kids because these children nowadays, when I was a teenager, I don't remember talking about mental health. But these kids nowadays, they're commonly talking about mental health. Like, I've got kids that will miss days of school and say they're taking mental health days.
Yeah.
Right. And they're not kidding.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not a game. And so as they get older and get into the workforce, my concern for them is that they've got to learn that if you miss too many days for mental health days, you might lose your job, bud, because guess what? They're hiring you to do your job. Part of your job is you got to be a functioning team player. Right. How can you, is there a way to differentiate? Again, for me, burnout for me is like an indicator, right? I don't know that burnout for me equals like that deep hole where somebody just does not want to get out of bed. And I've asked my kids that before in school. I've said, has anyone ever had somebody in their family that was so sad that they did not want to get out of bed? They were just crying. And the amount of hands that went up in the air was sobering, right?